It's a little Bluetooth project for a little vintage Kenwood receiver that I had laying around, and a couple of vintage speakers, all in the early 70s. These are some real realistic speakers. But it's a good match, like a 10-watt receiver and some low power speakers. But I installed this little Bluetooth board and that little power supply. I couldn't find the voltage that I needed. I needed 5 to 12 volts DC. Couldn't find it, but it's pretty straightforward to do that. I took an old wall power supply for USB and took it apart and pulled the board out and used that. And then this little cable runs over, and I've soldered it into the auxiliary connector, which this receiver has an auxiliary jack, auxiliary connection there. And the board is made by this company called Drock, just some little Amazon special. The board was, I think, $11. And it has a built-on antenna. You see the little wires in the back? Those are that little trace on the circuit board. That's the antenna. It does have an external antenna connector, which I was going to use, but I couldn't get the compression fit to fit on there. And this is a wooden case, and I had this up high. I mounted this up high. I just made a little metal bracket to put it up high. So it should get good reception, and just got it all buttoned up. And I was gonna show you how to demo the Bluetooth connection. So all you do is look for the Drock. And if you notice, the light went from flashing to solid. And then if you go to your music, you can actually, it does a little difference. So let's see, let's play some music. If you notice, it starts blinking slowly. I'll show you how I connected the power supply. If you notice, this power supply's got a little white wire. It runs over here, and that's switched 120 volts. And the other side of it is back here. It's kind of hard to see without good light there, but that little red wire connecting to the back side of that. So that's the 120. So both leads of that. And this is just, it's got a USB on it, but I soldered into the back of it to get USB, because the connector was not going to be a convenient connection. It was going to stick up too high. So you might be able to see those wires. I just soldered them into the bottom there. And I did use shielded cable. You notice this cable is shielded. It runs over here. Didn't want to get any interference. And also, if you notice, that LED is blinking. The back of this case has a little window, so I should be able to see that if I ever need to diagnose anything. Well, it's a fun little project. All right, this is how I wired up and mounted the Bluetooth board and the little power supply that I robbed out of a USB power supply for a cell phone or whatever. If you notice, on the back side, so there's the 5-volt USB standard connector. On the back side, I soldered in, I just used my meter and found the 5 volts, soldered, and then I put some hot glue on it to hold everything in place so it wouldn't snap or short out. And then on the other side of the board, so there's your USB 5 volts, and on the other side, there's your 110 connectors, that white wire and that red wire. And the red wire connects right down in here, and then the white wire connects over here. Of course, that's going to be different in every unit, but I just used the meter to find out where they were. And then on the Bluetooth board itself, I just built this little metal bracket, just cut some scrap metal, and used a little screw to mount that there. And then this will mount in the factory spot. I just took that one screw out of that heat sink, and I'll put that screw back in. But that's how I did that. It's a simple $10 my. Go in my daughter's room. She heard my vintage stereo and wanted one of her own.